Okay, I think we'll get rolling. So thank you all for joining today's webinar. Today I'm very happy to introduce Pablo Conesa, who works at the National Center for Biotech in Spain for biotechnology. And he's going to talk to us today about the work they're doing on Scipion, which is a really cool EM package for bundling together huge numbers of disparate and frankly difficult to use EM software packages. And I'm really excited to know how this is developing, as I tried it a few years ago and I thought it was had a lot of potential and was extremely powerful. So with that, I guess I'll put it over to you now, Pablo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to explain what we are doing. You can see here the link of the presentation in case anyone wants to follow it locally. There are some links in it. Let's jump in. So just who am I? I'm not going to give you the whole history of myself, but my name is Pablo Conesa. I'm part of the Scipion team in Madrid, and that is my email. That is the website of Scipion. And I must say that I said Madrid because Scipion is developed in different places. It's not Madrid. Probably the biggest team is in Madrid, but there are developers in other places, obviously developing their plugins, but also contributing to the core code. And I'm part of Jose Maria Carazo's and Carlos Oscar group. In summary, I'm going to give an introduction of a Scipion for those that might not know what the Scipion is. And then I will give you the point of view of what we think our users are. I think we have structural biologists as users, but we also target facilities to do some online processing. And we recently have target, since the last version, we have target developers. So we want basically all the community to contribute or use a Scipion and make this cryo-EM field well, be more together and advance, I think, faster. And then I will talk about the current status and the roadmap, basically what is coming. If I need to summarize a Scipion in a few categories, the first one would be that it's a workflow engine. What you are seeing there is a project window, is the main window users work with. Obviously, you can have many projects. And this is how one single project would look like, a very simple one. It has three main panels. The one on the left, it offers you the boxes you can add or the processes you can use in your workflow. As you can see, that those are the options for single particle analysis, which is the most abundant tree or elements we have. So it's the most populated view of protocols. Then on the middle, you have the graph panel. There you can see visually what is your workflow starting from the top. Usually you import something, movies, micrographs, averages, whatever. These are usually binary files. They might have some metadata associated as well. And then you start doing things with these boxes. And you can easily trace what you have done. You can also color your boxes if you want to give some color code meaning to them to keep them organized. And then on the bottom, you can see the section that is related to the selection. In this case, the box selected is G-Auto-Match in blue with a black border. and the information below corresponds to that box. You can see the output of the execution, but you can see also summary information or references associated, and you can also search, and obviously you can get the results and you click in the Analyze Results button there. I think the other good thing of the Scipion is that it integrates software, and this is an image from the Scipion side. You can see this kind of graph. The Scipion sits in the middle because it's actually just like the man in the middle trying to drive the information from one software to the other and back. Yeah. And those are the package or the software that are already integrated somehow. Mainly, historically, we have integrated many single particle analysis software. Those are highlighted in red there. CarSpark, Motion Core, Relion, Xmipp, System, Criollo, I don't know, you can see them there. But recently, we've been working on tomography, and this is not released yet, but some of the software that can do or can estimate or be useful for tomography will be added. And if you see the tomography box down there, this is not 100% accurate, because that's just because it's in development. It doesn't reflect everything. That tomography box comprises iMod, Dynamo, and some other plugins that I will talk about later. But it's wider than that simple box of tomography. And also recently, part of the team has been working on doing modeling inside the Scipion. So you can run some Chimera stuff, CCP4 methods, and Phoenix stuff as well. So this is already expanding beyond single particle analysis. So one of the benefit of using Scipion is that it will keep track of everything. You can see there are very complex, well, not that complex, but it's a real project of all the options that you can use in a Scipion. You have this big tree with that execution or workflow, and per box you can have that detailed information like this one, knowing what has been, what is the output, and also what were the parameters that were used to run each of those boxes. The workflows can be exported into a format, into a JSON format, so you can re-import that workflow in case you find that workflow like a standard template. You can reuse every time you make an acquisition. But it also can be shared and sent to Empire, which they have already accepted our file. You can see probably not very much, but if possible, if you submit that file, you will see a Scipion workflow item here, and when you click here, you will see a visual representation of the workflow. And if you click in one of these boxes, I haven't added there, but you will see the details of the parameters. So it's a first attempt of reporting what you have done, even for an Empire entry that has an IMDb entry as well. You can know what has been done from the Empire dataset to the EMDB. What are all these steps in detail? So we are also working on this to improve reproducibility and even learn from others. It would be nice if everyone can submit some kind of workflow like this to know what have you done. Recently in the Scipion 2.0, we made the Scipion plugin framework. So this means that It has a core part, but it has a plugin functionality where you can develop, anyone can develop a plugin. Obviously, you need to have some programming skills in Python, ideally. And if you develop a plugin, it will be listed here and it can be installed. Optionally, the other software that Scipion runs behind, like Relion or CurveSpark or whatever Motion Core, can be installed if the license permits it. So this is the case for many of the plugins, but not the case for others. So we cannot install CurveSpark due to licensing or other software, and we are not doing that. So this model has proven to work. We released a Scipion 2.0 with a bunch of plugins, and I think after releasing the Scipion, I think 5 or 6 plugins have appeared. We didn't have to change the Scipion at all. So the model of the plugin architecture is already working fine. So at this point, I'm going to talk about the Scipion from the structural biologist point of view. As I mentioned, you can combine any EM methods without programming, just using the graphical user interface. You can do data selection without running any script. You can select manually your elements, your particles, and you can create subsets easily. Or you can even automatically create subsets using protocols to filter or prune your data. I will show you later the consensus protocols that, since the Scipion can offer many picking algorithms, for example, or CTF methods, you can run many of them and then reach a consensus through methods as well that will grab all the particles picked by all the pickings or only the common ones. I will show you later, but these are kind of strategies that can be done in the Scipion because you have the chance to run different picking methods. Obviously, you can keep track of all your work, and you can even use that information in your paper when you're going to write it down. You can go back to the project and see all you have done and report every detail. Even you can attach the JSON file to the paper, extra files, or I guess it should be fine. You can schedule jobs, so there's a chance of running a box, and if that box is going to, or that method is going to take a few hours, you can schedule a job after that one and run it. So you don't need to, I don't know, to wait until the next day to run the next step. You can schedule jobs. And you can restart, duplicate part of your workflow. We are working on this to make it even more agile. And yeah, that's an option you can do. Try if something hasn't worked from the picking to the bottom of your workflow, you can copy the whole branch and redoing it again, changing some parameters. So the main functionality of a Scipion will be this big this project window where you click in one of the boxes. I'm going to simulate this in a presentation, although I think I will launch Scipion later. So you have a form here asking you for the parameters needed for this specific protocol. In this case, it's a Relion 2D classification. So you will be asked for the common parameters that Relion expects. And the way you can choose what to fit Relion is through these fields where you have this magnifier. And when you click in this magnifier, you are presented with the whole list of set of particles, in this case, that are compatible with this what the input rely on 2D classification needs. And those are output particles that has been produced by any software integrated in a Scipion, obviously, that generate particles. It could be a Scipion subset, an import, another reliant process, Xmipp, whatever, you name it. Any protocol that outputs particles could theoretically fit this reliant 2D classification. And that's how you mix software without any programming skills. That's the way Scipion does it. Additionally, you can have wizards in some cases where you can. It will help you to decide. For example, in this case, the mask radius. If you're not clear based on the data, you can click on the micrographs and then move this slide and just choose a value. You will find, for some fields, you will find some wizards as well. And there is also an option to, sorry, I click on this. You will get also detailed help per parameter. Usually corresponds to the help provided by the software behind. You can also explore your data. In this case, the set of particles. You can explore the items to check if that's the right one you want to use. Also, that's important. I will show you probably later. You can export all the reference that has been used in your workflow, and I recommend this to, I mean, everyone using the Scipion should do this and cite not only a Scipion, but also the software that is being used behind. You want to give credit to the software that is being integrated. There's a bunch of extensive or of result analysis. Here is just a few of the screenshots. You can plot FSCs, resolution histograms. You can plot even in Chimera local resolution output of local resolution methods, displaying angular distribution. There's a whole variety of plots that the protocols provide out of the box. And additionally, you can even generate plots. So this is a normal view of a set of particles, for example, with your data and some values. So when you click on this icon, you will be presented with a set of fields, and you will be able to configure here, choose what is the name of the title of the plot, the axis for the X label for the the label for the X-axis, choose the values, and then when you click, you will be presented with the plot corresponding to those values. So even you can customize or do some analysis on the data. To stop, I hope you can see my desktop now. So this is the Scipion 3, so still unstable, expect anything, but I'm going to be brave and run Scipion. So I'm going to click on this Empire. This is, I was testing this new release with this data set. I think this is the data set coming from Source when they published Reliant 3.0 or 3.1, I cannot remember. So this is what I managed to do. I'm not an expert in image processing, so don't expect much, but to be honest, apart from this, that is a later addition, you can see my workflow here. I did a motion core, then some CTF, I did some picking with Criollo. I extracted the particles with Xmipp. Then I ran CrashPark initial model. I did the crop or resize. I think I did some binning with the particles. I did a 2D classification with CrashPark and so on. So I could, with a basic, I would say this is a basic workflow, but I could reach a nice result, I think. So this is kind of what you can get. This representation of, in this case, is apoferritin, nice resolution. And I didn't do any special thing. You get this out of the box. Been able to close this. You can get, this depends on the protocol, but you can get histograms. You can get, you can get all kind of plots. And yeah, basically this is how you can, I wanted to show you how you can copy. So let's say I'm not happy with this run. I could select all this stuff, make a copy. Yeah, so the copy usually just doesn't display in the right place, but then I have a copy, and now I can run this again and restart this whole thing, changing some values or not. This might fail. I don't have CrashPark running here, but this is how you can try things and mix software easily. So I'm going back to the presentation now. And now I'm going to talk about the Scipion from a facilities point of view. This would be a list of features that might be useful for a facility. You can execute complete workflows in an automated manner, so you can have your template there. You can run this one day after one day. If your workflow doesn't require user intervention, then you can, at least the first step of the querying workflow can be more or less automated. So you can kick off a Scipion every day and launch your template script, and you can even customize a few values for the current session. Let's say you have a different dose, or you have a different box size, you expect a different box size of the acquisition, you can customize your template. So the benefit of this would be you can feedback the acquisition and make decisions on the fly. So if the acquisition is going wrong, maybe you want to stop the microscope. Or why wasting time and money on that acquisition if it's really going bad? But also you can feedback the user, and the user might not be in the facility, maybe at home, but he can get also information extract in a HTML report that describes the acquisition. You can, obviously you can combine many software, but not only, another thing that is not present, but the fact that we can add at any time a new method that is released somewhere and it's really working nice. It can be integrated into Scipion. So it's not only what we already have, but what we can have in the future. That you will not need to change the software or redo your architecture. And another point, you might have an accounting system or a visitors database in your to manage your visits, or maybe you have a LIMS system. So Scipion has a full Python API, and it can connect or can be connected programmatically. So it's been already done in different facilities, and it has worked nicely to send data or even kick off a Scipion from another application. One thing I like to mention is special tools that we designed for facilities, and are the consensus. The consensus are trying to, for example, if you have two methods that have computed the CTF for your data, then you can have a CTF consensus that is going to select those CTF that are in agreement based on the two methods. Also, the CTF consensus can filter based on some parameters of the CTF, like the focus or resolution, or the basic values of the CTF. And that's a way of pruning your data and reducing the amount of data that is passing to the next steps. Also, you can monitor what's going on. You can monitor your GPU, your memory, your network, and your I/O activity. You can monitor the CTF, so how those values are. If they trespass a certain threshold you can set, then you can get some emails, or you can get, basically emails. I don't think you can get any other kind of notification. And another example would be of consensus would be the picking consensus that I think I will demo later. And the acquisition report, we are generating a HTML that is a standalone XML that can be synced to a public URL where you can direct your users to see the progress. And this can be refreshed every minute. You can set this parameter, so the user can see what's going on the fly, even if he's in the hotel or somewhere else. So you have a acquisition section at the top. You have some CTF charts, and then you have a table of micrographs with some shift plots and PSD files with the CTF values. So far, this is for the facilities point of view. And I wanted to, let me simulate a kickoff. This would be an example of a facility kicking off a workflow. We have it here as a demo. And this would be like, if I have started my acquisition, then I've been prompted for these values. These values could be others, but my template is asking just for these ones. These are values related to the acquisition. I can change all these values to say this is a 200 voltage acquisition. Sampling rate is 1.58. And I'm going to leave the rest. Then when I click, it will take a while to prepare everything, but this will kick off Scipion with the workflow that is behind that template. And that template is basically an import, a movie alignment. Now we can see it. So that templates, the values I enter are now in one of those or several of those boxes. So the voltage ended up here. The sampling rate ended up also here. And basically My template was this, and is actually now working on the streaming. It means they are not stopping. They are expecting more files. And in this case, the import movies have already detected 15 items, but this is still checking the folder for more files. And it will not stop until it finds there's a timeout somewhere, or you stop it. Meanwhile, the other boxes are connected and are already doing its job. So the motion core has already aligned 10 of the 15 10 of the 15 movies. So, and the CTF has already, I think it's going without delay. And Criollo is already, hasn't started picking, but as soon as it can, it will start picking. And all these steps will be executed. I'm going to show you a consensus I made in a different project. I think it's this one. So here is the same, this is a test I did this morning for the same demo. And I decided to use, to be honest, the first time I used this system find particles. And I made, let's say, these are two pickings methods. This one is I'll put in 3,285 particles or coordinates, and this one is detecting less because probably I don't know how to use it properly. So you can do a consensus, and in this case it's an AND consensus. It means that it will receive the particles and it will output only those that are in both pickings. So obviously the minimum number is the maximum possible number, but obviously there are some particles that system detected that are not in Criollo, so that's why we have less number of particles, 1,000. But you can also play with some values. In this case, you can say as soon as there's a particle in any of the pickers, then you can let it pass. And in that case, it will be an OR. So it will be like, please merge all the particles in both cases and create a set with all of them. Now is your creativity, what can, or your particular situation, what can make you decide what to use and how to use this. Back to here, I think we are kind of all done. Everyone has finished its job, but they still are active because the streaming hasn't been stopped. So if I stop the streaming now, which is like saying don't expect more movies, then all the protocols are going to stop. Get a final result. This is the one generating the HTML report. I hope I can click here. This is the HTML report generated for these 15 movies. Not very interesting. Oops. And that's more or less it for the facilities. Let me go back to my presentation. So now for developers, I don't know how many developers are there, but I'm talking about this anyway. We see certain benefits in the integrating your software in a Scipion. You can see a Scipion as a distribution channel to reach all our user base. We have more than 2,000 downloads of a Scipion 2. We know there is duplication, but we know also that there are GitHub clones and there are facilities to running day by day the Scipion. Your code can be automatically tested regularly at our servers, and your binaries too. So if someone has binaries, but it doesn't have the infrastructure to test its code, as soon as Scipion knows how to install the software, the plugin and the software behind can be tested automatically. Almost, I think now our execution time takes 1.5 days more or less to test everything. You can also get usage statistics. This is tricky because when you develop a desktop software, you put the installer or the software somewhere. All you can know is if the user has downloaded or how many users have downloaded your software, but you don't know if they managed to install it properly, if they are using it every day. So it's like a black box, and we have enabled the Scipion to report, providing the user accept that, to report back the usage of the protocols. It's a very small, very little information, nothing compromising the research, but enough for us to do some statistic of the usage. And we would like to increase this and probably report errors that will help to know if our methods are failing, why they are failing, and to provide a better quality of the software. Additionally, you don't need a full stack wrapper. So many software have several very nice methods, but then they can't provide the full stack. So they lack of the initial step of the workflow or the last step of the workflow. So what do? Usually, if you lack of the latest, you provide some export to rely on or some other software that can use your data. And if you lack of the initial steps, then you wrap it and you use some other software that can do that stuff for you. In that case, you don't need to do anything like this. You just work on your software, focus on your method, and develop the plugin. And a Scipion architecture and design will do the rest for you. There are a bunch of file formats: MRC, HDF, DM4, you name it. It's a bit of a nightmare, and we are dealing with these file format conversions. So if you have a software, you don't need to provide all these conversions. You just can implement one, and then the plugin convert your file format, whatever is coming, to the one that you actually implement. So you can focus on your method and also in presenting the results, plots, whatever you want to provide the users with. We have also out-of-the-box queue system integration and MPI executors. So you don't need to implement all that stuff yourself. And we believe we have strong support through GitHub. We have a Slack workspace, and you can contact us through email, Skype, Zoom. So basically, we try to help everyone that contact us. And last point, you can come to Madrid. Obviously not now, it's not a good time for this, but we always invite people. If you want to spend 1 week in Madrid with us, I think that will be enough to at least kick off the collaboration, have a nice plugin already doing some of your methods or running some of your methods. And probably is the best way to start a collaboration or a plugin. These are some examples of what you can see in the Scipion site. That is the URL. You can see a table with a ranking. and you can see the count, the number of times in this case is a CryoSpark, the CryoSpark 2D classification method is being used. And you can also compare your method with other methods of the same type. So you can see here the picking column. So these are these are dominant here in movie alignment. I think this is motion core, but other types are kind of more spread the usage. And this is about the automatic testing. So yeah, we test even development branch and production code. So you can get to our servers and see what is the status of the production plugin, what has been released and the users are able to use, and also what you are currently developing. And as I said, this is being tested regularly in our servers. So until here, I talk about Scipion and basically Scipion from different point of views. Now I'm going to talk about the current status and the future. The current status is that we have more than 2,000 downloads of version 2. We have more than 10,000 projects reported. We try to skip test projects. We will do better in the Scipion 3, but we know some of them are at test project, and we don't want that, but somehow they are skipping our control. And yeah, the feedback for us is important. As I mentioned before, the geographic usage will allow you to will allow us to decide where to organize trainings, and also the usage of some protocols will allow us to deprecate some functionality if no one has ever used it, why to maintain it, or otherwise give high priority to some methods that are commonly used and maybe they require some maintenance or updates or fixing. As for the roadmap, we are about to release Scipion 3. I think it's ready for beta testing, or we are almost there. We have done a strong refactorization of the code, so that's why the 3 Scipion 2 basically brought us the plugin, and that was good because plugins could be updated and fixed without releasing a Scipion, but the Scipion couldn't be updated. And with this new refactorization, a Scipion will be able to be updated as well. So 100% of the code will be updatable, and probably will be the last time you install a Scipion. From the installation of Scipion 3, you will probably just update the Scipion or the plugins. We have simplified installation, but still we need to work on that. And we have improved usability. We have added search boxes in several places. We have improved the execution of branches, copying, relaunching, or continuing whole branches of boxes. We have obviously fixed many bugs, and we have simplified the configuration of a Scipion for sysadmins. It was a bit, still is compatible with the old configuration, much simpler with the Scipion 3. Relion 3.1, it's in the oven, so it's almost ready to be tested. I think next week will be released internally to be tested. System, it's already coming, the evolution of Grigori Lab plugin, now it's system. And there's a new version of Xmipp. They've been working on accelerating several methods of Xmipp with GPU and some deep learning stuff as well. Probably there will be an atlas to backtrace your particles or your whatever the outcome of your processing is, you can backtrace that information to the atlas and maybe come up with some conclusion or improve your acquisition later. MicroED is coming as a side project. We are not working on this, but the Scipion is able, because of its architecture, is able to work with all the domain data. And there's actually a developer in Sweden working in a version of the Scipion for micro or electron diffusion. And there will come some other on-the-fly processing functionality and reporting. We've been working on this to improve that part. And another thing is, I call that mini workflows, but I don't know still the final name. But we've seen that the Scipion could be overwhelming when you install a Scipion and you see all the options. It could be too much for the learning curve, could be high. So we have implemented mini workflows, which is a way of providing like small workflows that the user will be able to run. The user will be asked, similar as the demo I showed you before, will be prompted with a few parameters. Where is your volume? Where is your mask or whatever? And that small workflow will be executed. And you might get some deep res stuff from Xmipp or whatever. This is flexible, so the plugin can decide those mini workflows. But it could be even code from the command line. So it would be a way to integrate Scipion or Scipion mini workflows to the command line to run specific methods within the Scipion without the whole options that the Scipion already offers. Just allow me a brief comments about the Xmipp new release. There is a GPU movie alignment method. I think it would be called Flex Align, but I'm not sure if that will be the final name. There are deep consensus and denoising methods for the picking and micrographs. There are methods for discrete and continuous heterogeneity coming. Stuff about local and directional resolution and local deblurring. There's stuff like this in the Scipion 2, but I think they have improved performance and results. And high res, for example, I think it has been improved as well and accelerated, and many other things. So Xmipp is coming with very nice new functionalities. And now this is also something we are working with, is tomography in the Scipion. This was a long time in the to-do list, but it has started several months ago. I would say almost a year. Or it takes time, but we have already this list of software already implemented. We have iMod, some methods of iMod. We have even tomography methods already implemented, some of them. Xmipp has a few of them. Dynamo, it's already implemented, at least some of the methods. Nova CTF, the existing GCTF Fine and CTF Fine 4 can be adapted to use tomograms. And DeepFinder is a recent addition. The developer contacted us and we are helping him. ITOM expressed interest, but I think they are probably busy with something else. And we are trying to engage developers, and probably tomography could be a good scenario for joining software that consistency. I think it would be hard for the users to have a workflow in tomography. But I'm not an expert in tomography. That's my feeling. I'm almost reaching to the end. This is the Scipion team. As you can see, the image, the Institute Image Processing Center in Madrid has a big number of people working on it. But Sci Lab also is working in the Scipion. Grigory Sharov is contributing a lot. And then on the right side, you can see plugin developers that are already working, developing their plugins. And we hope this list to be bigger and bigger with the time. Victor Bengtsson is the developer of microID stuff. And yeah, acknowledgement is a huge list. It's in our website, but there are many people that contribute, and also institutions, funding agencies. I cannot name all of them, but yeah, that would be everything. Now it's time for questions if there's any.
Great, thank you very much for that. That was really interesting. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send them to me or any of the other hosts in the chat and we'll pass them along. Otherwise, if you raise your hand in Zoom, we'll try and find you and unmute you so you can ask your question. So I have a couple of questions that people have sent, both broadly related to the new Scipion 3.0. The first one is, are there any specific new features, particularly user-facing features that are present in 3.0 that aren't in the existing release?
So say it again, features in 3.0 about what?
That aren't in Scipion 2.0. Is there anything it will bring?
Yeah, I would say, obviously there will be Rely on 3.1, which will not be released in the Scipion 2.0. All the Xmipp stuff will not be released in the Scipion 2.0. There are bug fixing and usability stuff. So if you're, I would say, if you're okay with the Scipion 2.0, you're happy, you're in a critical step, I don't think there's a rush to install a Scipion 3.0. But if you're in the middle of a, I don't know, you have time to update it, I recommend to do it. We have also fixed several bugs, and the chance to update not only the plugins but the Scipion core, I think it's something very useful. We can release code more often, and you can update your system more often. It will provide more stability. Yeah.
Okay, great. That feeds nicely into the second part of that question. The Scipion 3.0 databases, will they be back compatible with Scipion 2.0?
Yes, we are always trying to keep compatibility, backward compatibility, and so far we haven't detected any problem. Obviously, if you, let's say, the Atlas plugin, for example, or some of the tomography stuff, if you use a Scipion 3 and you add your tomography methods there, if you need to go back to Scipion 2, which is possible, you can have two installations at the same time. If you go back to Scipion 2, that protocol will not be able, the project will still be able to load, but Scipion 2.0 doesn't know anything about tomography stuff. So you will be able to open your project, work with it, but some boxes will not be, will be drawn in the graph, but when you click in them, you will not be able to see anything because they are considered like as legacy or something unknown. But we are making efforts to keep compatibility, and so far I think it's compatible. I can switch back and forth from Scipion 2 to Scipion 3. Yes.
Great. A few more questions relating to Scipion 3 releases. Broadly around, well, I guess, when do you expect the release version to be stable? And also related to that, how best for people to get hold of the newest upcoming release?
I think it depends if you are among the pioneers, the brave ones. I think soon you have something. Probably we will not announce it, but you can contact us and we can give you the instructions to install the Scipion in beta testing mode. Most of our developers are already in Scipion 3 using Xmipp. Jose Miguel, Grigory doing rely on stuff and maintaining other plugins. We all have migrated to Scipion 3. It's true that we are not regular users, so we just focus on the code testing with some data. It's not actual processing, but we are kind of in a stage where you can still with some risk, but you can still use Scipion 3 in beta testing mode. If you are more conservative or you have more restrictions, you don't want to experience some bugs, I would recommend you to wait a bit until we release the official version. That, I don't know, this is always hard to estimate, but probably around summer would be probably the estimated date to release a Scipion 3.
Okay, great. Yeah, I realize it's impossible to give any accurate date for software releases. On that note, when these 3.0 version releases, will you continue to support previous versions for any length of time afterwards?
Well, we usually support the current release version and the previous one.
Okay, so 2.0 will still be supported.
Yeah, to be honest, 2.0, it's already there. It doesn't now require much of the support. We have already, today we have released a new version of Sphere plugin with Criollo. Last week we have released CrowdSpark updates. So it would be probably plugins that we detect some bug and we release the fix. And it's not much hassle. And we will maintain it, but obviously with the time we will be focused more on Scipion 3 code than Scipion 2 that is stable and probably there isn't much activity. So with this, for example, if we release the tomography stuff, we are not going to make an effort releasing tomography in a Scipion 2. That will not come to Scipion 2. It's too much work, I think. Also because the code has changed completely. We have migrated to Python 3 and the code, it's possible, but it's hard to make the same code compatible with two versions of Python. So yeah, we will be focused more on Scipion 3, although we will maintain and support the Scipion 2.
Okay, perfect. I think Pete also has a question and he'll unmute himself to ask it.
So I guess I'm going to deviate slightly from the technical and ask a more theoretical question, but you'd mentioned the consensus methods earlier in one of your slides. I'm curious if you could say a little bit about how you're doing consensus. Is that just ensemble weighting? Is that using error estimates from the individual programs? Or?
Yeah, so I mentioned, maybe I can show. Are you asking for the picking that? Well, there are actually three consensus methods. One is for CTF, the other is for picking, and the other is for classes.
Well, I guess I'm more asking as a general approach. Because is this more like ensemble-based learning, or is this more like combining different statistical estimates?
It's basically combining estimates. For example, in the case of, well, I have an example of CTF. In the case of picking, is very simple. Is just trying to see what is the common particles peak among all the inputs. There's a radius value here, which is basically the tolerance you want to give to the algorithm to consider the particle the same, because there might be the same particle might be detected, but there might be a shift of certain pixels. So this is the tolerance, but this is a very basic method. The CTF, let me find it. Census. The CTF has two approaches. This is designed to filter CTFs basically. So most of the values are just looking at the values of the CTFs, but also if you there's a parameter here. If you specify a second CTF, then it's doing a comparison of both CTFs. If they match up until certain resolution value, which you can specify here, then they will be considered a match, and then the CTF will let pass and will be part of the outputs of CTF. For the 2D classes consensus, I cannot say, I don't know. This is done by Xmipp developers. I can give you the information or the contact.
No, thank you. I think I got a better understanding of what you were talking about now. So thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I think we have one last question, which actually I had as well, and somebody has sent in. In the facility side streaming capabilities, is there a way to add breakpoints in there where it requires a user intervention at some point just to then choose whether or not it proceeds further down the pathway or potentially forks into a different pathway depending on what the outputs look like?
Yes, it's possible. You can have your template the way you want, and if you have some, for example, Xmipp picking requires a manual training. So this picking, it requires manual intervention. So you have this box in your workflow, it will stay there until you launch it. And until you are done and you train Xmipp with your data, the rest of the protocols that are plugged are depending on this one, will be waiting until you finish it. Does it answer your question?
Okay, so, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to add, say, a check for CTF estimates or something where you only continue further down the line of particle picking if certain thresholds are met, or more generally just looking as a breakpoint for user intervention at any point along the way?
No, well, we don't have that such of breakpoint in a non-interactive. So this comes from the nature of the protocol itself, but we don't have any. Well, that's a good idea. Maybe we can have some kind of boxes to check or do something, but we don't have such functionality.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's the majority of our questions now covered, so I'd just like to thank you again for the talk. And thank you everyone else for joining this webinar. I'll just repeat again, we have another webinar coming up later this week. Let me just pull up the calendar. So we're going to have Tristan Kroll talking about Isolde and molecular fitting, and I think that'll be really interesting on Friday. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you everyone for your attention.